Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm the Manchild, Dave Herndon.
And I'm David Komer, and honorary Manchild. Dave, let's talk about something that's happening really soon. It's an, I guess, homage or extension of some revered DC work from the mid '80s, The Dark Knight Returns. What's happening?
Well, this coming Tuesday, just a couple days from now, the animated movie, they're making the animated movie, it's coming out. They're actually splitting the animated movie into two parts, so I'm not sure I want to wait that long. When I first saw that, I decided that I was going to wait and pick up part 1 and 2 together when they release the second one. Now, as we're nearing, I'm like, I can't wait. Tuesday morning, I'm going to be in line to grab my copy, and by in line, I mean probably be the only one, because nobody ever picks them up where I pick mine up. I'm always, like, I get there right as the store opens, and there's nobody else waiting ever. But I'm a big fan of the DC animated movies. They've been much better than the Marvel animated movies.
What's been your favorite recent DC animated movie?
I don't know. Actually, the last one that came out, Superman versus the. Now, of course, I don't remember the Elite. Superman versus the Elite. That was a really good book. Well, it was a really good book. It was a single issue though, and they expanded that into a full movie, and I really enjoyed that one.
Let's get into The Dark Knight Returns a little bit. What's your take on just kind of transferring it over into a different medium, let alone so many years after the fact? I personally have to admit I'm not too thrilled with the idea because I think there's going to be something lost in translation. What are your? But again, I'm not a huge animation guy.
Well,
so what's your take on it?
You have that worry a lot, but I really trust the creative team here. Bruce Timm has worked on almost all of these, if not all of the DC animated movies. Bruce Timm, of course, is the creator of the Batman the Animated Series that kind of kicked off the animation boom in the early to mid 90s that has continued into today. And the Batman the Animated cartoon was probably the best cartoon I've ever seen.
Right. Well, speaking of the best series I've ever seen, Dark Knight Returns, I thought, when you look at Frank Miller's work, it is a masterpiece, and I know that word gets thrown around a lot. It's probably pretty popular nowadays, but to throw that vernacular around, but I think the shoe fits. It's basically a masterpiece from beginning to end. You have it was a 4-issue series. In the mid 80s, I was old enough to buy them fresh off the rack. And I'll never forget, I'd never seen a series of comics where, granted, they were printed on thicker paper stock, but it was one of those deals where the first printing would fly off the shelves. You'd be looking for a second printing, a third printing. As a kid, I didn't even know they had multiple printings. And at that time, it wasn't that common that you needed that many printings of a comic, being that it was just so popular. And at that point, it was a real special time for DC because right around that time was The Watchmen and everything else. So I don't know. I just think it's a landmark series, and obviously it's set in the future. For those who don't know, Bruce Wayne has since retired. It's been at least 10 or 15 years.
10 years since anybody's seen the Batman.
Right, in public. And by the way, sidebar, the Batman, so lame. It's Batman, okay? Let's not put the in front of everything to make him sound mysterious, okay? Just kind of stupid. Okay. In addition to artists who make his cape 3 miles long, that's another one. But okay, that neither here nor there.
Would you like me to leave and you can just go on your diatribe?
That's okay. And then maybe I'll talk about Frank Miller's degenerating art ability. Thank God he can still write.
Next time.
The sequel to the Dark Knight Returns, Dark Knight Strikes Back, not the best artwork in that one. I think Frank's work degenerated a bit, but still, his writing top of the game, and even now he's an amazing writer. And but his art, I thought was so perfect though for the Dark Knight Returns. It was not quite traditionally mainstream, but I thought working with this dark future world of a retired Bruce Wayne in a kind of ultra-violent Gotham City, I thought it was a perfect fit, and it really worked with Miller's excellent storytelling.
Well, and of course, you said you were old enough to have picked them up when they came out. Obviously, I'm not quite in that age range. You've got about 10 years on me. When they first started coming out, it was, 87, I'm wanting to say?
About 80, I want to say 86.
Okay, 86, 87, in that range. I would have been anywhere between 1 and 2 years old. I was born in 85, so
Right.
Wasn't quite into the deep dark Batman book yet.
Sure.
I first picked it up when I was in high school, and it was one of the first comics I absolutely fell in love with. I had sporadically read comics, mostly Marvel books actually growing up, but very sporadically. Like people would buy me an issue of this, an issue of that. It was never anything. Never really got into like storylines. My passion for these characters came from the fantastic animated series we had in the early '90s, which is my heyday. I've since started to pick up some comics. I'm getting there. But The Dark Knight Returns was really my first graphic novel that I was really into. And I've since read it at least a half dozen times.
And it'll be really interesting to see how they split up the 4 issues because, you're going 2 movies, so maybe you're covering, 2 issues in each, I would imagine. So what you've got in the first one, you've got the establishing story of him coming out of retirement. You've got him dealing with basically some of the violent menaces going around in the first one. You've got a little bit of the Harvey Dent stuff happening. Second issue, you end up having him going toe to toe with the gang leader and the gangs, and you have the establishment of Carrie as the new Robin.
Actually, the first female Robin, even though it wasn't technically canon at the time.
Within the timeline, right? And then the third issue, you've got the final showdown with the Joker. Fourth issue, you've got Superman kind of doing the bidding of the government, being the ultimate sellout in a world without heroes. Superman coming, basically going public a little bit.
That was a powerful scenes.
Oh man, going toe to toe with basically a robot, mechanized, geared up Batman, pulling out every technology trick in the book to go head to head with Superman, mano a mano. So I mean, you've got it'll be interesting to see how much time they give each book when you're putting them into a mishmash of two books in each movie. At least you would assume.
I really would have rather had a much longer movie, even if I had to splash down an extra, double money. Even.
To be honest, I would have taken a 4-part movie, 4-part miniseries movie, or whatever, 4-part series, just to give each book the due it deserves. It might be tough, but I'm interested to see how they keep the dark tone. I mean, there's a few parts where the Batman of the future leaves a thug halfway through a window, bleeding to death, and walks away laughing. Well, not quite laughing, but smirking. So, do they keep that thing? How about the woman in the third book, the neo-Nazi chick who kind of looked like Annie Lennox on steroids, who had swastikas on her boobs, okay, and while she was carrying a machine gun. I mean, I really wonder if they're going to be able to kind of keep that tone. Now, granted, some of it isn't as shocking in the year 2012 as it was in 1986 or whatever. But I mean, do you think, being that you're such a veteran of the animation genre, do you think they'll get away with all that?
With the past movies, they've done really well at translating it almost direct from the book to the screen, but changing just enough to keep it like a PG-13-ish, not going too far. With this, I haven't looked to see what it's rated. I would imagine it may even be unrated with it being a direct-to-DVD release. But I would very much imagine that they're going to be like, here kids, here's your father's Batman.
Yeah, and you notice you said that term as in, here kids, not your father's the Batman. Okay? There's no the in there, see? Because there shouldn't be. Note to DC.
But here's your father's Batman. It's not the pushover Christian Bale Batman.
Okay, that's a story for another tale, or for another podcast, or for another video cast. But anyways, so that's coming out next week, and I'll be really interested to see what happens. And be sure to check for a review of that one as it comes.